The camera sees what you want it to see. Audiences watch the performance, the character, the story.
We thought it was cute to let him smoke it and all that. It was an idiot move on our parts, a lot of us, to share that with our children. I'm just happy he's here.
Not the person arriving on set at 5 in the morning, or what it took to get through the scene. For some of the most recognizable faces in Hollywood, that gap between the image and the reality was enormous.
And I said to my friend who was a long time in recovery, I said, is there any way somebody famous?
Addiction does not distinguish between talent and mediocrity, between success and failure, between the famous and the unknown. It simply takes hold.
Not hard once you go to rehab. I mean, rehab is, that's the beginning of kind of, the idea is you got to surrender. You got to just say, I can't do it, because,
Some of the people in this video lost decades to it. Some lost everything. Some found their way back. Today, we look at every famous actor who secretly struggled with addiction.
But I really don't know anyone who hasn't had some sort of encounter with it, whether it was a family member or whatever. And I'm just glad I'm sitting here and I wasn't part of the monologue.
His father introduced him to marijuana at the age of 6, offering it the way another parent might share a meal. Robert Downey Jr. grew up in a household where substance use was ordinary, and by his teenage years he had moved well beyond marijuana into a pattern of cocaine and heroin use that would define and derail the first half of his adult life. The career was already visible. He had been nominated for an Academy Award at 26 for Chaplin. He was considered one of the most talented actors of his generation. And he spent the better part of the 1990s dismantling that reputation in public.
The story of Robert Downey Jr. Drugs land the troubled actor in prison, and he reaches out to a psychiatrist for help.
Arrests for heroin and cocaine possession, multiple stints in rehabilitation that didn't hold. A night in 1996 when police found him barefoot and incoherent on a stranger's bed in a house he had wandered into. He was sentenced to nearly a year in state prison in 1999. The turn came in the early 2000s. He has credited a structured rehabilitation program, therapy, Wing Chun Kung Fu, and, consistently and specifically, his wife Susan, without whom he says none of the recovery would have held. He has been sober since 2002. Iron Man came in 2008, and with it one of the most complete career resurrections Hollywood has ever produced.
Because you're acting like a child. Sooner or later, you're going to get grounded.
He once described getting out of that period as emerging from a cave. The work, he said, is not just getting out, but changing into something different on the other side.
I took them and I went, oh, sure, because in those days, yeah, whatever, fine, let's do it. 3 days later, I was kind of like, oh, boy,
Still going strong.
why am I in Bombay?
Robin Williams first got sober in the 1980s, after years of cocaine use during the period when he was becoming one of the most celebrated comedians and actors in America. He stayed sober for more than 20 years.
If you're kind of shy, and sometimes I get kind of like this, that people they just look at you.
Cocaine, what a wonderful drug. Anything that makes you paranoid and impotent, give me more of that.
He talked about it openly and without apparent shame, about the loneliness of touring, about how the energy of performance could mask the silence that came afterward, about the ongoing work that sobriety required. Then, in 2003, he relapsed. He spoke about it frankly and returned to treatment. He was sober again. He continued working, films, television, live performances, and continued speaking about addiction in interviews with the same candor that had made audiences trust him. He died in August 2014. He had been living with Lewy body dementia, a condition that had not yet been diagnosed at the time of his death, and which those close to him later described as the primary source of his final deterioration. The addiction had not killed him, but it had shaped the contours of his life in ways that he spent decades being honest about.
For me, I love to take the chances and improvise. That's that's the greatest high in the world, when you're trying new stuff, getting suggestions and playing and doing new things.
That honesty, people in recovery circles have said since, was itself a form of service.
This is a horrible story about someone, and then you realize, oh, it's me that I'm talking about. So, when things got really dark, and then,
In 1997, Matthew Perry was involved in a personal watercraft accident. He was prescribed opioid painkillers for the injury, and the prescription became an addiction that would take him the better part of 3 decades to understand. At his worst, he was consuming up to 55 Vicodin a day while filming Friends, the show that made him one of the most recognizable actors in the world.
I'm not great at the advice. Can I interest you in a sarcastic comment?
Audiences watched him shrink visibly across seasons and speculated. He was hospitalized. He went to rehabilitation multiple times. He relapsed. In his memoir, Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing, published in 2022, Perry estimated he had spent $9 million on treatment and rehabilitation over the course of his life. He was blunt about the numbers, about the relapses, about what it felt like to be what he called an award-winning alcoholic, someone who publicly advocated for recovery while privately still finding it unbearably difficult.
Just the creative experience of being on Friends probably saved my life. I write in the book, when you're making $1 million a week.
He died in October 2023, found in the hot tub at his Los Angeles home. The cause was the acute effects of ketamine, which he had been receiving as part of a medically supervised treatment for depression and anxiety. The irony of his death, that a substance used in legitimate treatment contributed to it, was one his friends said he would have appreciated darkly, and then used to help someone else.
Well, I had grown up very fast, and it's not very normal to see a 9-year-old at a big Hollywood party drinking.
She was in ET at 6 years old. By the time she was 9, she was drinking at parties. By 12, she was using marijuana and cocaine. Drew Barrymore's childhood unfolded inside the entertainment industry, with almost no protective structure around it. Her parents had separated. Her mother was permissive about the social world Drew moved through, and the child who had become a household name had effectively no one managing what she was being exposed to. She was in rehabilitation for the first time at 13. She was briefly emancipated from her parents at 15. She wrote about the early years in her memoir, Little Girl Lost, published when she was 16. And then she rebuilt, slowly and publicly, into the person she became in her 20s. A career recovery that paralleled a personal one, marked by a series of mid-range film roles and a reputation for warmth and resilience that her early biography had given her every reason not to have. She has been sober for years as an adult, has spoken about the difference between what alcohol did for her and what it cost her.
Totally rebelled about, I was like, I will master this toxic behavior of mine.
And has been particularly candid about the fact that her recovery was not a single event, but an ongoing decision. The girl who was famous before she had any defenses is still here several decades later, and the awareness of what that means sits visibly in how she talks about it.
Is that I know nothing. Now I am completely clueless because I've lived to such an age that I realize that my knowledge is meaningless. Of myself I am nothing.
Anthony Hopkins drank heavily for the first part of his adult life. He was a working actor, then an increasingly successful one, and the drinking was constant and worsening. In 1975, he woke up one morning in a Phoenix parking lot with no memory of the previous 2 days. He did not know how he had gotten there or where he had been. he decided, sitting in that parking lot, that he was done. He has been sober for 50 years. He joined Alcoholics Anonymous and has spoken about the program with consistent respect and straightforwardness, not as a cure, but as a structure that gave him somewhere to put the daily work of not drinking.
I'd love to meet him. Have you considered the possibility that he is disfigured, or that he may believe he is disfigured?
He was 50 when he played Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs, 63 when he won his second Academy Award for The Father, 83 when he collected a third nomination. The career that followed sobriety is the career most people know. He has said that he would not have survived long enough to make any of those films if he had kept drinking. He says this matter-of-factly, without drama. He has also said that sobriety gave him back his memory, his curiosity, and the ability to sit still with himself, things that drinking had been steadily taking away. He is now in his mid-80s and still working. The parking lot in Phoenix was 50 years ago.
We both had kids the same age, and I kind of like sidled up to her and kind of like, and finally, was able to say that I had a problem with Vicodin.
Jamie Lee Curtis was prescribed Vicodin after a cosmetic surgical procedure in 1989. The prescription led to a dependency that lasted for 10 years, which she managed in private while maintaining a visible public career. She has said that she was a functioning addict, capable of showing up, doing the work, presenting normally, which was partly what made the addiction so difficult to recognize and address. She was stealing pills from friends and family members by the time she acknowledged the problem. She entered recovery in 1999 and has been sober for more than 25 years.
And the Oscar goes to...
Jamie Lee!
She won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for Everything Everywhere All at Once in 2023.
We just won an Oscar together!
An Oscar she accepted while talking openly about recovery, about the fellowship of sobriety, about what it had taken to get there, and what it continued to require. She wore a dress she described as chosen for a ceremony she had spent years not being sure she would be alive to attend. She has become one of the most consistently frank public advocates for addiction recovery in the entertainment industry, specifically around prescription medication, a form of addiction that carries less cultural recognition than alcohol or illegal drugs, and which she has spent years working to make visible.
I was so lost. And I was addicted to cocaine. That was the other thing.
Bradley Cooper moved to Los Angeles in his early 20s with a career that had not yet taken shape and a relationship with alcohol and cocaine that was accelerating quickly. He has described his self-esteem at that point as close to zero, that the substances were a way of managing, an interior state that he did not know how to address any other way.
That was pretty career-changing. I was 36 when that happened, so I was already in the game for 10 years just banging around. So I didn't get lost in fame.
During one episode, he smashed his own head deliberately against a concrete floor at a party. He was 29 years old when he finally got sober in 2004, after his friend and fellow actor Will Arnett confronted him directly about what he was doing to himself. The career that followed sobriety is the one the world knows.
12 p.m. the next day, and I remember, and then when I got the call that I got it, I was like, I can do no wrong.
The Hangover, Silver Linings Playbook, American Sniper, A Star is Born, the last of which he directed, co-wrote, and starred in, and in which the central character is an alcoholic musician losing his grip on everything while the world watches. Cooper has said he could not have made that film or understood that character from the inside without having lived the years he lived before he got clean. He has been open about the fact that sobriety is not a past event, but an ongoing practice. And he has spoken about it in terms that people in recovery recognize, not as a problem that was solved, but as something that requires continued attention. He occasionally works with younger actors who are navigating similar pressures. He was 29 when he stopped. He is now in his 50s.
There is a lot of pressure on young people, not to drink necessarily, but to find happiness through going out and getting mashed.
He was 10 years old when he was cast as Harry Potter, and 21 when the final film was released. The decade in between was the entirety of his visible public life. And the pressure of living inside a character and a franchise of that scale, from childhood through early adulthood, was something he has spent years describing carefully. He started drinking during the later films. Not on set, he has been clear about that, but heavily in the evenings and nights before filming days, in a way that he recognized was not recreational, but was managing something. He has also spoken about having dyspraxia, a condition affecting coordination and spatial awareness, which contributed to a persistent sense of being unequal to his environment.
And then as you get very drunk, you become aware that, oh, people are watching more now because now I'm getting very drunk, so I should probably drink more to ignore that more.
Alcohol quieted that. It also, gradually, became a problem he could no longer manage quietly. He stopped drinking in his early 20s, with the support of people around him, and has been sober since. The career after sobriety has been deliberately varied. Stage work, independent films, a consistent effort to move away from the boy who lived and toward an adult acting career built on range. He has been generous in talking about his drinking in interviews, consistently framing it not as something to be ashamed of, but as something that was happening in a very specific, very pressurized set of circumstances that he was too young to navigate alone.
If you want to be great, you have to learn how to be drunk and high and still do the play, because that's like all the great ones do. So, what? Well, we tried it.
Samuel L. Jackson spent the 1970s and much of the 1980s in a sustained cocaine addiction that ran through his early theater career in New York and into his first years in film. He was working. He appeared in Spike Lee's School Days and Do the Right Thing. But the addiction was always present, always worsening, and the people around him knew it. His wife, LaTanya, who he has credited throughout his career with saving his life, staged an intervention with their daughter in the early 1990s after finding him passed out at their home. He entered rehabilitation and got clean in 1991. He was 42 years old. Jungle Fever came the same year, and his performance as a crack addict in that film, the role that announced him to a wide audience, was drawn directly from what he had just come through.
Yo, Don lost my address. Come on, hit me. Some cash in my hand.
John Singleton cast him, Spike Lee gave him the platform, and audiences responded to something in that performance that was clearly not invented. Pulp Fiction came in 1994. What followed is one of the most productive careers in Hollywood history. Over 150 films, by some counts, with a consistency and a range that continued well into his 70s. He has said simply that he would not be alive to have made any of them if he had not gotten clean. He got clean at 42. Most of what people know him for came after.
Things that people are giving you that you don't even know what the fuck they are. They look like a pill, and they're shaped like something that you take, so you take.
In December 2007, Eminem was found unresponsive. He was taken to hospital. The doctors told him that the methadone in his system, combined with other substances, amounted to a dose equivalent to 4 bags of heroin, hitting his central nervous system simultaneously. He was told he had been close to dying. He was 35 years old. The opioid dependency had been building for years, fed by a combination of chronic pain from a violent assault, the relentless pressure of maintaining a position at the top of the music industry, and a willingness to self-medicate that had become all-consuming. At his worst, he was taking up to 60 Vicodin and Ambien a day.
They said 2 hours. If I would have got to the hospital 2 hours later, that would have been it.
He has said he could not get out of bed without medication, and he could not sleep without it either. He entered rehabilitation and got clean in 2008. He has spoken about the role of exercise, specifically running.
I was running twice a day for a little while. It was a little too much. It was a little extreme. So it was a total of 17 miles.
Which he took up with the obsessiveness that had previously characterized his drug use, in rebuilding his physical and psychological stability. The albums that followed Recovery, including Recovery and the Marshall Mathers LP2, were among the most commercially and critically successful of his career. He has been open about the fact that getting clean required him to essentially learn how to live without the thing that had been managing his pain for years. He has been sober since 2008. 10 people. 10 very different relationships with substances that took hold, and, for a period of time, took over. Some of them found their way through. Some did not make it. What is consistent across almost every story is how long the struggle was hidden, how effectively the work, the image, and the performance concealed what was happening in private. Addiction does not look the way it is supposed to look. It looks like someone showing up, hitting their mark, and delivering the lines. It looks like a successful career. It looks, from the outside, like everything is fine. The people in this video were watched by millions while fighting something most of those millions knew nothing about. If any of these stories felt familiar, if someone you know is fighting the same thing, the number for SAMHSA's national helpline is 1-800-622-4357. It's free, confidential, and available around the clock. And if you want to keep watching with us, subscribing keeps you close to new videos as they come.